Hey folks, Barry here. Last month I asked your opinions on women in gaming. And I got this. Now, I've been having issues with the YouTube comments lately. I don't know. I think it's straightened out now. I don't know. Some have been disappearing on me, stuff like that. So, I don't know. People have been leaving comments and I'm just not seeing them or whatever. But it's been a little buggy lately. So, I did ask the one tar a few questions related to women in gaming when I did an interview with her a few weeks ago. And here's what she had to say.
All right, so this is Tiffany. I'm Barry Reynolds, not Tiffany Reynolds. This is Tiffany Reynolds. The one tar and also half of the Spooning Eagles. So, I guess we'll get into the question of the month thing. I used to do one of these run-throughs every week, and then I cut back for several various reasons. But in doing so, I try to fill in the off weeks with different things, interviews, or one of them is the question of the month. And this month's question was women in board gaming. I drive an hour to and from work, so I have a lot of time on my hands in the car. And I listen to quite a few podcasts. And a couple of them were commenting on how women in America in gaming isn't as great as it is in Europe. Like in Europe, it's almost a 50-50 crowd of men and women. Mm-hmm. And then over here, it's not nearly that. And then also, well, I was wondering why that is. Do you think women in America are put off by gaming, or do they think it's a boys' club, or what?
Well, there's a lot of interesting opinions on this thing and studies and stuff like that, and a lot of what I think to be the base reasons for this stem from my experience in the science and technology field, because that's my career path is computer science. So there's a big push right now for getting more women and especially young girls involved in science, technology, engineering, and math at a young age, because if you build that interest young, it's more likely that they will grow up loving that and choose that as a career path. And a lot of studies have been done, and a lot of things point to the way that children's toys are marketed in America, and specifically the green aisle versus the pink aisle, and whether or not people buy into that. And so, if you look at the toy aisles, I went to Toys R Us recently because I was curious about the game aisle there, and they have one game aisle that is mostly pink. It was kind of horrendous. And it was a bunch of Barbie, Weird, Dora the Explorer, whatever spin-off games, and most of them are for younger kids. And then the main harder core board game area, those games that were there were not very good. There were a lot of just reskins of the big Hasbros. There was 17 versions of Monopoly or something. It was something ridiculous like that. And so if you look at just mainstream toy stores like Target and Toys R Us and Walmart and that kind of stuff, they're very pink and blue, and the toys that are in those areas are generally boys get engineering and Legos and build blocks and I forget the name of it. They were, when I was a kid, they were the metal structures. My brother had a ton of them, erector sets, I think. Yeah. And girls get dolls. And so a lot of that goes if you look at a lot of the board games and a lot of the board game themes, not so much anymore, it's getting better, but traditionally, if you want to get out of Clue and Monopoly, your options are Risk or Strategia, which are war games, and war games are for boys. If you look traditionally at the toy aisle and what people get to play with, and then the girl games are stuff there was the mall game where you had to go to the mall and buy things, or the game where you were dating and there was the fake phone and you would dial the number of boys Like you would get a card and it would be a boy's number, and then you would call it, and then the phone would have like it would have a circuit in it that would give you a random thing on whether or not the boy would like you or accept your date or something. I don't even remember. It was just so ridiculously horrible. But I think that it's getting a lot better now. But when you look at the toy aisle is basically the whole sum of this. It's like if you look at the toy aisle in America is very different from the toy aisle in other countries, especially in regards to themes and what boys play with versus what girls play with, and I think it overlaps with board games.
Yeah, so. It could be. I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, you're right. It could be. Well, Hunter's got a question here. Hunter from Weapons Grade. Do you think calling male gamers and female gamers instead of just gamers has something to do with that?
Partially. I mean, I mentioned to one of my coworkers today, I'm kind of, I think we had this in a Dream Phone Mystery, that was it. One of the,
yes.
Yeah, I forget, I think it was on the Plaid Hat podcast where we basically just survived. So why can't it just be gamers? Why does it have to be a big deal that I'm a girl? And the problem is that it is a big deal that I'm a girl, apparently, because I was on a very popular and well-known gaming website, and I'm not going to say what it is, and it had chat feature, and I was in the chat, and I asked a general question, and I had my standard username of the one tire, and the people didn't know who I was. I mean, I was hurt a little, but it was okay. And I asked my question, and then they answered, and I said thanks, and then they were talking about, some guy came in and was well known, and everybody knew him, and he asked if somebody would preview his game, and I mentioned, oh yeah, I do some reviews sometimes. And so I said I would be willing to look into it if they send me an email. And somebody else in the room was like, oh wait, somebody's willing to review games, not make a video, but review and give my opinion, playtest basically. Playtest a game and give my opinion on it. They're like, oh wait, no, I saw him first. And they just used the him, and I corrected, because it's the internet and nobody knows. And I just corrected, oh, I was actually, I'm a girl. And then the chat just exploded into how it was, oh my god, there's a girl in the chat room. Oh my god, go tell blah, blah, blah. Oh my god, there's a girl in the chat room. And I'm like, this is, really? This is this is a very large, well-known gaming website. And you guys are acting like 10-year-old boys that I came into your locker room? They weren't upset. They were, excited. And, one guy was like, this is so odd. It was just, yeah. And I just left. When they started blowing up, I was just like, all right, I'm out. Peace. And, yeah. So it annoys me when people make a big deal about the fact that I'm a female gamer, but it stands to just to point out that for some people this is apparently a big deal, and I think until it becomes not a big deal, it's to a majority of the population or a decent amount of the population, it's just always going to be a big deal, which is a really circular way of concluding that.
So you think women gamers? Well, I don't see on that. My group is 2 women and me. So it's I'm the minority there. But do you think that's part of the stigma in gaming? Is the whole Dungeons and Dragons in your mother's basement thing, and then
For some communities, the neighborhood and community that I grew up in, girls don't game. Girls go on dates and they go shopping and they go to the mall and they dream of the day that they'll have a husband or something. It's very stereotypical white picket fence America, and I know that's not the same everywhere, but it's just my background. Rhiannon has a very amazingly different background, where she grew up in a gaming family, and her mom loves D&D, and so it's just, I think it really depends on where you are. I think that for the majority of the country, unless it's a gaming community or you're coming from a family that has a history of gaming and is more open to it, I feel like in general gaming is a guy, D&D in the basement kind of thing. I think everybody's different, and everybody's family's different. Yeah. So it's tough to generalize, but there's definitely overlaps, and there's some patterns and stuff that you can see whenever you go to a convention or something like that. So.
Yeah. I've never been to a convention. I was actually going to get in there a little bit later on, but in a convention, do you see it more male-dominated than female?
Yeah. If the convention is so a lot of people, there's a lot of couples that go to conventions. I know Gen Con is very family-oriented, but there's also still, I would say it's like 2/3 men, 1/3 women, of Gen Con from what I remember, just like walking around the convention hall and stuff like that. I didn't spend any time in the tabletop library because I was recording video, running around like a crazy person. So, yeah, you see the ratio when you go to conventions and different conventions. And it's even worse when you go to events for specifically like game designers. Excuse me, and I think that just reflects for game designers are a subset of the gamer hobby. And so if there's already a minority in the hobby of women, then in the game design like subcategory of gamers, it's going to be even worse. So, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, you and Rihanna and other people. I was talking to Karen from the Dragon Table last night. You know, I can see, at least in the review end of it, women are coming out a little bit more. Like when I first started watching the online reviews, there was no women at all. You know, there was, you know, the Dice Tower and their 40 million people and Rodney Smith. You know, but that was about it. But that brings. I was watching a reviewer, and they were referring to this game they were reviewing, and they said this isn't a game for a woman. Like I think Corkle was the example they used. I could be Scrap, one of them two. Do you find that a lot?
Where people say this isn't a game for a woman?
Yeah, like they're trying to refer to as like Scrabble, Corkle, easier, wordy games, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just insulting. But I do get it a lot, and I've even had that happen to me where I'll go into a game store and I'll be like, oh well, I am looking for a game that's like this but this, and they'll usually give me something that's more of like an entry-level game. And I think that just goes back to because the majority of people in the hobby are male, and so I think that, you know, if you're somebody that has to recommend games a lot or something, when most females are asking you and they mean, you know, introductory, you just kind of get trained for that. And it's hard for me to be mad about it because while I am a woman and I've had people assume that about me, at the same time, I've talked to people and they've been, I mean, most of the females that I talk to about gaming or whatnot, they are just spouses or stuff like that. I mean, not all of them, not by far, but I still run into, like, one of my really good friends at work. Her boyfriend is a massive gamer, and they invited me over for dinner and games one night, and like the whole time we're playing, she's just like, don't worry about me, I just don't like games that much, I'm just gonna go net and stuff like that. So it's one of those hard ones where it's like when the majority of people that you run into that are female in the hobby are more intro because they're still just discovering it and stuff like that, it's hard not to build that stereotype in your mind. So I try not to get upset about it, but at the same time, I also try to be cognitive, conscientious. That just because I'm an outlier doesn't mean that other people can't be outliers too, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I get that one a lot. I also get, this really annoyed me when I first started doing reviews and videos. I used to get people that would ask me, I used to get husbands that would ask me all the time, can you help me get my wife into gaming? Like, and I'm just like, what is she like? Like, just because she's a woman, I don't know what she likes. Like, that doesn't, there's not a secret gamer code of like all women like pretty shapes. Like, I don't know.
So Well, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Get gaming, have fun, and I'll see you next time.